UN Human Rights Commissioner Volker Turk called these strikes extrajudicial killings, and Britain agrees with this assessment. The decision to stop intelligence sharing reflects London's long-growing skepticism about the legality of American actions and opens a rift with its key ally. Canada has taken a similar stance, continuing to cooperate with the U.S. Coast Guard, but not wanting its data to be used for deadly strikes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Y'all see? It's growing. It's growing. My goodness, look at this. Wow. They are basically saying, nope, we're not sharing. We do not want to share this information any longer. Even Canada is saying, you guys are getting a little out of control. The United Kingdom said no. They said, you cannot have this information. They said you will not pass. Let's get into this, y'all, because this is an interesting story I found out, and I was just like, what in the hell is going on? Now, I will say this, I might have to kind of like shield the video a little bit because they're going to be showing some images that I can't really show, but this is going to be this is a big story. Now it says exclusive UK suspends some intelligence sharing with the US over boat strikes. So let's get into this. So let me see. All right, so let me make sure I get this correct. So we'll get into this right here, right now.
To the Situation Room, watch this. The United Kingdom is suspending, listen to this, suspending some of its intelligence sharing with the U.S. because of the Trump administration's strikes against alleged drug boats in the Caribbean.
We are joined now by senior White House reporter Kevin Liptak and CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, to you first with this exclusive reporting. I mean, this is a big deal. The UK is arguably the closest ally to the United States when it comes to intelligence sharing. What else do we know?
Yeah, Pam, it's a really significant rupture here. Essentially, what we're learning is that the UK is no longer sharing intelligence with the US about these suspected drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean because it does not want to be complicit in the US military's strikes on these drug vessels and believes fundamentally that the US military's use of force against these vessels violates international law, according.
So, of course, yeah, I got to kind of take that away for a second, but the UK is basically like, whoa, United States, you guys are in some stuff we just can't get into. What are you guys doing? Keir Starmer is like, yeah, we out. We out. We can't be doing that. Because what do you mean you're carrying out boat strikes against people in the Caribbean and you're doing war crimes over there? We don't want part of that. The intelligence, yeah, we're not going to be sharing that with y'all. Y'all crazy. Here you have a U.S. vassal state, and let's be real, right? All the countries in the G7, except for the United States, the other 6 of them, they're vassals. They're servants of the United States. They're not their own independent countries. They're the henchmen. That's what they are, right? They're the scratch and grounder of the U.S. If you know, you know. They're the Goldar and Scorpina. You know, they're the Bebop and Rocksteady of the United States. If you know, you know. This is the problem with these vassal states, and now one of them just gets a little bit of intestinal fortitude, right? one decides that their testicles drop just a little bit, and now they're like, wait, we can't do that. No, put it back, baby, put it back. You know, and so it's kind of funny how it's like, wait, but y'all were the vassal state of the United States that also was part of the war on terror, that also committed atrocities against people in Iraq that was murdering over 1 million of them. I mean, don't you guys remember Tony Blair? But they saw exactly what happened in Palestine, so now they are scared. They're scared. And they see what the United States is doing, they're like, yeah, we can't do that. It's interesting, right? So I'm gonna keep playing, but I'm not going to share the video portion. Please let me know, like, if I'm full screen like this, can you guys still hear it? If you guys can, then yeah, I'll keep it up until that part goes away. But I just want to make sure that I don't share some of these images, because yes, it's kind of like radar-ish images, but I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube, so that's why I'm keeping it like this. So please let me know if you guys can still hear.
To multiple sources that we spoke to. Now, previously, the UK had been happy to help the United States locate and interdict vessels that were transiting the Caribbean that appeared to be trafficking drugs. But the key difference, of course, is that it was helping the Coast Guard intercept those vessels, arrest those on board, seize the drugs, and allowing these individuals to have some semblance of due process. But now, the US, of course, has started striking these boats unilaterally with military force, killing everyone on board. The total now for number of people killed is around 76. And we're told that the UK is deeply uncomfortable with that, and they believe that it is pretty blatantly illegal. Now, it is unclear exactly how long this intelligence sharing suspension is going to last, but we're told that it has been going on for well over a month now, essentially since the US began its bombing campaign. And it really underscores the continued questions surrounding the legality of this US military campaign, which of course the US government, the Trump administration, has insisted is part of an armed conflict that it is waging against cartel members and criminal organizations. But much of the international community, as well as legal experts inside the US, do not see it that way.
So it's really about the United States continuing the illegal actions that it's carrying out against different countries that it really wants to take over through imperialism. And ultimately, this is about going against Venezuela, because the United States, particularly the Trump regime, wants to go against Nicolas Maduro and his administration in Venezuela, ultimately because of the resources that Venezuela has. Venezuela actually has the largest oil reserves in the world, even larger than those of Saudi Arabia. So, of course, because the United States has a partnership with Saudi Arabia, essentially the United States really is the tail that wags the dog of Saudi Arabia. So then they can actually get that oil from them. It's a bit shaky now, because especially what the United States is continuing to fund the genocide in Palestine and occupied Palestine. But now the United States wants to set its sights on the largest one. They want that big whale that is Venezuela. And so they're trying to be able to put in their own vassal. They tried to do it with somebody like Juan Guaido. They failed miserably at that, because really Juan Guaido was just laughed out of the room, so to speak, in Venezuela. Now you have Maria Corina Machado, that is actually also just as, if not even more genocidal, even more Zionistic and demonistic in her pursuits to try to run the country, because she really just wants to be a puppet of the United States, because, well, girl's got to pay the bills. And so she wants to have that position where she's in Nicolas Maduro's place. And so because of that, she is also trying to lead the opposition. But the people of Venezuela, they smell the BS. They're like, no, not her, not at all. And so the world's trying to clean up Maria Machado. they're trying to clean up her image by saying, oh, well, we're going to give her the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Because she's so peaceful that she actually called for, you know, the bombing campaigns on her own people and people taking over her own government, and also the bombing campaigns in Israel. She's so peaceful that she's done things like that, which is absolutely ridiculous. And so this is really what it's about. It's about regime change so they can get hold of resources and then also command a presence in the region, just like they do within West Asia. So the proximity in Venezuela has proximity to places like Colombia, as well as Venezuela being in the northern part of South America also has easy access to the Caribbean. So they might also be able to have access to the islands a little bit more. They will also have access to all, other countries, that may resist U.S. hegemony and occupation, like Bolivia, and also like Brazil, really, because the United States also has it out for Brazil because they actually do not like Lula da Silva, despite Lula being kind of a centrist, in my opinion, but they really just do not want anyone in the global South to actually have any power that is really the power of the people, that being more socialist leaders, more left-wing leaders. And this is really part of the Monroe Doctrine. So the Monroe Doctrine basically treats the entire Western Hemisphere as their own little playground. And so that's basically what the United States is doing. They want to apply the Monroe Doctrine throughout the rest of the global South within the Western Hemisphere. And this is exactly part of the ploy to do it. It means risking the lives and destroying the lives of people who largely are just fishermen that are just trying to make a living in the Caribbean. And so it's at that cost as well as they also don't like the fact that people like Gloria Steinbaum is doing more for the people of Mexico, versus they actually want more of a Javier Milei instead, so that they can be able to puppet and say, hey, do this, and then and give us their resources so that we can be able to uplift our billionaires so they can own more of the world. So that's exactly what's going on. This is the whole reason why we're seeing what's going on, especially within the global South. So let me continue on. And I hope you guys are able to still hear when I'm full screen. So if not, then just let me know. But let's continue on with this.
Stand by, Natasha. I want to bring in our White House reporter, Kevin Liptak. How is the Trump administration responding to this extraordinary move by the United Kingdom?
Yeah, and in Natasha's reporting, it's clear that the White House hasn't commented on this particular suspension, but it's clear that the administration has not been deterred in this strategy so far. You know, the president and top officials have insisted that these boats are ferrying drugs and that the intelligence bears that out, and you have seen them over and over again target these boats in the Caribbean Sea, you know, multiple times per week. Now, this question of the intelligence is not necessarily a new one. You've heard a real outcry from members of Congress at what was initially a relatively slow pace in delivering them briefings on what the rationale for these actions were. You have seen that ramp up over the last few weeks, but Democrats at least have not been convinced. You know, they've emerged from these briefings saying that the intelligence is relatively thin and sort of firm in their view that the administration's actions are illegal. I think this will also raise some questions about what the U.S.-UK relationship is and where precisely it stands. You know, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has spent a lot of time trying to maintain a relationship with President Trump, trying not to upend what is, the quote special relationship. And we should note this comes at another moment of tension between the U.S. and the U.K. as the president sues the BBC for allegedly doctoring an interview that aired on the Panorama program. And so you do see those tensions building there as well. The president has raised in the past the prospect that the campaign in Venezuela could potentially expand to land strikes in that country. He hasn't made a decision on that front yet. He has offered somewhat contradictory views. He told 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago that he did not think that that would happen. But clearly, the U.S. is engaging in this massive military buildup in the region. Now, with the revelation that the U.K. has suspended intelligence sharing, it all leaves open the question of where potentially this is all leading.
So, yeah, this whole notion that Donald Trump is a peace president, it was all BS. It was all bluster. It was just a means to garner more support from the MAGA crowd, from Trump voters, because they're sick and tired of regime change wars. They're sick and tired of money going towards wars instead of actually being provided for the American people. And so Donald Trump knows this. And so he's going to try to finagle this to say, well, they're making our country worse, when in reality, Venezuela, when it comes to drugs, because that's really what it's supposedly about, Venezuela really does not traffic any drugs at all into the United States. I think the amount of drugs that probably get trafficked from Venezuela is probably less than 5%. A huge chunk of drugs that actually comes to the United States comes through from places like Colombia, and even then, the amount of drugs that come from Colombia has been drastically reduced because the president, Gustavo Petro, has actually lowered the amount of illicit drugs that are being manufactured in places like Colombia. And then on top of that, you have a lot of the drugs that are coming through more vassals from the United States, like Ecuador as well. And so, because they're coming from these other countries, is coming from the vassals that the United States are partners with, that are cool with. And so it's just like how a lot of people will say, oh my God, this person is an agent of Qatar, but Qatar is actually a partner of the United States. So what are you guys complaining about? But because they're brown, that means there's something wrong. It's the same thing, right? A lot of the drugs are coming from U.S. vassals in South America. And so, but they try to blame it on another country that somehow has a either left wing or a socialist leader. And so then they're like, oh, well, they're the ones who are actually doing it. Meanwhile, their drug use, production, and consumption is a lot lower because they actually tackled the drug problem, not necessarily by just being super tough on drugs, but they actually fixed a lot. They're fixing a lot of these social issues that cause people to feel the need to produce or consume more drugs. And so people don't feel the need to do it. So they're like, hey, I got a decent job. I don't need to do this illegal stuff. So that's how it works. We can do the same thing here, but they don't want to. And that's the problem with the United States, that they just wanted to keep coming in. Also, by the way, the fentanyl that they complain about actually doesn't really come here from South America. And it's not coming by boat. It's coming through the southern border. Yeah. And so why do we have a country that is murdering fishermen in little speedboats in the Caribbean? Why is our country murdering fishermen from places like Trinidad and Tobago? Why do we have a country that is essentially trying to hold the Caribbean hostage even further than what it has already? Like, for instance, like Cuba's been in a blockade for over 60 years, an embargo for over 60 years. You got the United States, Canada, and France that are basically holding Haiti hostage, trying to extract as many resources out of that country. Jamaica just went through a massive Category 5 hurricane within the last like 10 days. So they're dealing with that. So what are we doing here? And this is why the UK is like, look, you guys are committing war crimes. The Caribbean just went through a massive hurricane. Like, they don't need people to be murdered by this military nuclear superpower illegally, right? Let's continue on.
Yeah, some very serious questions now. Natasha Bertrand, Kevin Liptak, thank you so much. Big deal.
And let's get some analysis right now. Joining us, CNN military analyst, retired Colonel Cedric Leighton. Colonel Leighton, thanks so much for joining us. Based on my experience, this marks a very significant break from the U.S.'s closest ally, Britain, and intelligence sharing partner. I don't remember a time when Britain has publicly announced it was suspending intelligence cooperation in a certain area because it suspects what the U.S. is doing was illegal. Are you surprised?
Oh, yes. I'm surprised that it has come to this stage right here, but I'm not surprised with the British action, Wolf. The British relationship, the intelligence sharing relationship that we have with the Brits really goes back all the way to World War II and even before that to some extent. So this is a very significant break in that relationship. It's part of the Five Eyes program, basically a bunch of countries, including the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, all working together. And basically what they've done is they've split up the world in different areas, and they use resources. In essence, it's a resource sharing arrangement plus an intelligence sharing arrangement. And it's particularly noteworthy within the realm of signals intelligence, but it also goes into the realm of human intelligence and other technical intelligence disciplines. So this is very significant because the British have a very robust intelligence capability. That intelligence capability extends into the Caribbean. A lot of British territories, as Natasha reports, are part of this. They have intelligence sites in those territories, and they provide basically a clearer picture of the types of events that are going on in the Caribbean and in the adjacent waters. So this lack of intelligence support from Britain is going to have a significant impact on the accuracy of the intelligence that the US uses in prosecuting the so-called war on drugs. So this is a major, major issue.
Do you remember it?
And so one of the things that also has to be remembered is that if Britain is basically getting bigger for their britches, so to speak, with this, my question is, what is the next country to follow suit? Because if the United States sees this and they don't do much about it, then this could be a sign to other US vassals that are more lax on pursuing this war on drugs, or really it's a false war on drugs, but if they were to not want to participate and they cease giving intelligence or sharing intelligence with the United States, if they see that the UK came out unscathed, that may give them a little bit more bravery into doing the same, which it could spell doom for the United States when it comes to further intelligence. Now, this is just for this particular case. This is not for other cases involving different countries in places like West Asia or Africa, or even in South America. So, of course, the CIA and MI6 will continue to have their robust relationship in other areas. But this could be a crack in the hole. This could be a chink in the armor. Let's hope it is, because to be honest with you, the CIA it doesn't have a great track record when it comes to democracy and human rights. I want to share this as well because I was looking up some news regarding this, and I highly recommend people go to antiwar.com, because antiwar.com is a great resource for all the gatherings of different news media analysis regarding different things with military conflicts around the world. But I want to share this too. So it says UK suspends intelligence sharing with US over deadly Caribbean strikes. So UN Human Rights Commissioner Volker Turk called these strikes extrajudicial killings, and Britain agrees with this assessment. The decision to stop intelligence sharing reflects London's long-growing skepticism about the legality of American actions and opens a rift with its key ally. Canada has taken a similar stance, continuing to cooperate with the U.S. Coast Guard, but not wanting its data to be used for deadly strikes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Y'all see? It's growing. It's growing. My goodness, look at this. Wow. They are basically saying, nope, we're not sharing. We do not want to share this information any longer. Even Canada is saying, you guys are getting a little out of control. Let's continue in here because I want to share this as well. And this is the article that was shared by antiwar.com. It says Trump has accused boat crews of being narco-terrorists. The truth, AP found, is more nuanced. So it says one was a fisherman struggling to eke out a living on $100 a month. Another was a career criminal. A third was a former military cadet. And a fourth was down on his luck bus driver. The men had little in common beyond their Venezuelan seaside hometowns, and the fact that all four were among more than 60 people killed since early September, when the U.S. military began attacking boats that the Trump administration alleges were smuggling drugs. President Donald Trump and U.S. top U.S. officials have alleged the craft were being operated by narco-terrorists and cartel members bound with deadly drugs for American communities. It says the Associated Press learned the identities of the four men and pieced together details about at least 5 others who were slain, providing the first detailed account for those who died in the strikes. The dozens of interviews in villages on Venezuela's breathtaking northeastern coast from which some of the boats departed. Residents and relatives said the dead men had indeed been running drugs, but were not narco-terrorists, nor leaders or cartel or gang. It says most of the 9 men crewing for such a craft for the first or second time, making it at least $500 per trip. Residents and relatives say they were laborers, a fisherman, a motorcycle taxi driver. 2 were low-level career criminals. 1 was a well-known local crime boss who contracted out his smuggling services to traffickers. The men lived on the Paria Peninsula in mostly unpainted cinder block homes that can go weeks without water service and regularly lose power for several hours a day. So here's the thing, right? Let's say hypothetically, and here's the map, but let's say hypothetically that they all were drug dealers. Let's just say hypothetically they all were drug cartel dealers. It was still illegal to murder them. I know. But there's this thing called rule of law. There's this thing called due process. That's a thing. And yet our country wants to murder people out of suspicion. What makes Donald Trump different from Barack Obama? And so this is the thing, right? If somebody says that we are a nation of laws and we need law and order, but that person is not willing to follow the law and apply order, then the hypocrisy is so strong that what's the point of even following anything they say? What is the point of believing anything they say? He doesn't care about law and order. He just said it to make you feel some kind of way. And this goes for every U.S. president, every U.S. president, every U.S. president. Because they all do it in some way, shape, or form. They have all been guilty of doing something illegal and committing crimes against other people, war crimes, horrible things. Yes, even the beloved Jimmy Carter, all of them, every single one. And so this is why I put that picture of a nervous looking Keir Starmer up there. Because he's probably looking at Trump and going, oh, okay, I got some guts here for doing this, but what's Donald going to do next? And so ultimately what has to happen is Donald's not going to be happy. And if he hasn't said anything by today, it'll definitely be tomorrow. It may come out as a post on Truth Social or a tweet on Twitter, or he may say something about in front of the cameras, but he wants that oil. That's what Donald Trump has said. Ultimately, it's not about spreading democracy or making the world a safer place. It's making the corporations richer. It's not that much different than Joe Biden and the rest of the Democrats. Politics as usual, which is deadly for many people. So this is why it's important for us to keep focus on what's really going on. Also, the cartels, this whole war on Venezuela, is also why is also creating conditions. And I was listening to Ben Norton about this, but it's also creating conditions for people to say, oh my God, these Venezuelans, they're coming here and they're making our country worse, when in reality, that's actually not the case. They're actually not the ones who are bringing in all this crime. There may be a couple people who have done crime, in their home countries, but the majority of them are not like that. And so it's being used as a scapegoat so that you justify in your mind and heart the extrajudicial killings of people in the Caribbean. It's the same thing that they did with the war on terror. This is just the war on terror 2.0. They want you to feel okay with the extrajudicial killings and abuse of people who are brown. That's ultimately what it is. It's a psyop. Because ultimately, who is it help? It damn sure don't help us. But it's definitely going to help the billionaires to get more of the resources from a country that they want to own.
Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. 1.